Call this meeting of the Blue Springs Planning Commission to order. Ask that you please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone that's here this evening, and especially welcome Travis Graham, who's here for his first Planning Commission meeting. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
I'll go over our agenda for this evening. We have a consent agenda which just consists of the minutes of the last meeting. We have a capital improvements program presentation of all the capital projects that are proposed for the next year. We will have election of officers for this group, and then we will adjourn, have a presentation by City Attorney Bob McDonald on public officials' liability. So with that, are there any questions or amendments to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, or to, we're getting through these meetings pretty quickly. Do we have a motion to approve and second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. Then we'll have Mr. Holly will present the capital improvement program.
Thank you. Good evening. We'll kind of go through this PowerPoint. I think it hits the high points of the capital improvement program, and then once we're through the PowerPoint, if you have questions, we certainly have the resources here with staff to hopefully be able to answer those questions. Well, I didn't realize that the keyboard didn't work. You ever had that problem, Scott? Oh, there it goes. Yeah. I think so. Wow. Wanted to start out with the CIP, just thanking some of the individuals that have been involved, particularly with the CIP rating committee. And this year, as you know, Commissioner Trozen and Commissioner Banks were very helpful with the rating committee, and we wanted to thank you. We also had on the rating committee Parks Commissioner Jack Gilliland, City Council members Jeannie Lauer, Kent Edmondson, and Ron Fowler. Also included was members of staff, including city administration, public works, the police, and I wanted to extend a special thanks to finance, who puts the budget together and works a lot of hours to get there. Without them, it would be very difficult. The 2010, 2011, 2015, 2016 projects and budget are very consistent with the directives provided by the City Council in years past. You won't see a whole lot new in there this year, obviously with limited funds and budgets being as tight as they are. We're not proposing many new projects. Again, this year, as with past years, the budget is divided into funded projects, those projects where we've identified funds and we'll be able to move forward with, and then unfunded projects. The majority of the projects, again, this year are maintenance or rehabilitation type projects. Not much new things going on. The total budget, including the funded and unfunded projects for the entire 6-year period, is approximately $150 million. Just for comparison's sake, we had $194 million in 2008, $190.7 in 2009. But then remember, in 2009 we also had bond money that entered the CIP. We also had American Recovery Act funds that also entered the CIP, so that kicked it up a little last year. The total funded projects for the 6-year period is approximately $47.8 million, and it represents 31.8% of the total 6-year budget. That's including both funded and unfunded projects. If you'll notice on page 5, I believe that the percentage given is, I want to say 42, but I know it's in the 40s. It might even be 48. That is an incorrect number. It should be 31.8%. That has been corrected now in the document, but not in the document that you have. The total cost of the unfunded projects for the 6-year period is about $102.4 million. Projects proposed to be funded for the 2010-2011 budget year totals about $11.7 million, and that represents 24% of the total funded projects for the 6-year CIP period. On page 5 of the CIP document, you'll notice a pie chart. The pie chart is correct. However, the call-outs to each of those sections was not correct or is not correct in your document. That too has been corrected. What you will see is, for instance, public service, the pie chart will show that, I think it's 5%, but the call out will say 0%. That was corrected, and in the document now, it's correct. Total number of projects proposed for the next 6 years, including both funded and unfunded, is 75. 26 of those projects are proposed to be funded. 49 are unfunded. Although I put the note down there, we are always looking for funding to pick up some of those unfunded projects. So whenever we can, we seek those kinds of funds and then move those projects into the funded category. Most of the CIP projects for the year 2010 and 11 are carried forward from last year's CIP, and it would include, of course, the repairs to the public safety building and City Hall complex. The block grant program continues. The street rehabilitation program continues at a rate of $2.5 million, and it will do so this year, next year, and then in 2012, 2013, I believe it goes up to $3.5 million. There's a total of $18 million in that particular program for the 6-year period. Woods Chapel Road improvements, phase 1, the snowplow, street difference project, phase 2 and 3 of Woods Chapel Road, sanitary sewer, citywide maintenance and water main maintenance, and water tank maintenance contract. All, again, were in last year's CIP. They just carried forward this year exactly as they should to the funded for the year 2010-2011. 2 new projects that were not in last year, the mobile data terminals and automatic license plate readers, PS04, is a project that actually was included last year in the unfunded section. It moved to the funded section, or is being proposed to move to the funded section. Again, we have Chief McCoy here and Chief Morton, is that what you say? Both here with us tonight, so if you have questions about that, I'm sure they will be able to better answer that than I. We also are proposing an F-450 ambulance, PS05. It's part of an overall program that we've had in the past. It's just moved to the CIP this year because the project or the ambulance exceeds the $50,000. Additional projects being proposed this year to be included in the unfunded section. The public safety restore the brick exterior of the public safety building. Adams Dairy Parkway landscape repairs. That would be at the intersection of Adams Dairy Parkway and I-70. One note about that particular project, as it's proposed, one of the questions that's come up each time with that project is, isn't that RED's responsibility? The project being proposed here is outside of the responsibility of RED. In other words, RED will do their landscaping. This maintenance issue has something that would have had to have occurred regardless of the RED project. Traffic island rehabilitation, including 7 Highway, that's a citywide project. includes traffic islands outside of 7 Highway, but we said include 7 Highway simply to let you know that there are projects along 7 Highway that have been identified. Common question that's come up with that is, isn't 7 Highway MoDOT's responsibility? And the answer to that is, yes, it is MoDOT's responsibility. MoDOT does not have funds identified for that rehabilitation for any time in the near future. And because 7 Highway is such a visible corridor for Blue Springs and such a heavily trafficked corridor, and it oftentimes offers the first presentation of the community to folks who come into the community who don't necessarily live here. It was thought to be an important project.
Well, we don't have funding for it either, though.
We
right?
don't have funding
So
for it.
doesn't the fact that we included in our unfunding, doesn't that take it away from responsibility for MoDOT? I mean, both of us don't have funding for it,
Right.
so now they're just saying, well, it's Blue Springs' worry.
Yeah. I guess the difference is MoDOT doesn't even really have it on their radar screen, whereas we want it on our radar screen so that sometime in the future we might be able to move funds that way, or if we can find funds. I'll also say that staff is actively working with MoDOT to try to figure out if there's a way we might partner to get some funding from MoDOT to be able to do this project. That answer your question?
Yes.
I mean, I agree with you. It's not being funded on either front, but we're trying to acknowledge it here.
I'm sorry, may I? So if the city goes in and takes care of that on 7 Highway, will MoDOT come back on any kind of a reimbursement program, since it's ultimately really their responsibility?
We have Chris Sandy here, Assistant Public Works Director, and I think he's been, or Jeff Sell, either one. I think they've been somewhat familiar with it. It might be better if they come forward and discuss that a little bit.
We've been talking with MoDOT on it and things of that nature, and we're trying to work out a joint partnership where they might supply the manpower and equipment if we buy the concrete and stuff. You know, we never have sent a bill to MoDOT. I mean, I guess we could, or at a later date, but it's just not on their, you know, they have Interstate 70, Interstate 435, and things of that nature that they're trying to take care of, and budgeting shortfalls and also, but being a heavily traveled corridor in Blue Springs, our residents see it, and it's a lot higher on our radar, as Jim mentioned.
Yeah, I understand the desire. It just bothers me that we are scrimping and saving, and we have so many streets that are in such dire need of
Sure,
repair.
no,
you know,
Yeah.
it just.
Even as staff, we're the same.
Where do you go with it?
Right, we're the same way. It just, but it is 7 Highway. It's, you know, most residents of Blue Springs, so that therefore in itself brings it right up to the top. And we have a good working relationship with MoDOT. They may not be able to help us here, but I can bet you, you know, as they do overlays and stuff throughout our city, you know, on their roadways and stuff, they'll help us out somewhere else.
So
and things of that nature.
there's a tit for tat kind of
Typically
agreement.
speaking, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who has built the islands on Highway 7 now?
Who has maintenance of them now?
Who constructed the islands that are there?
I think the islands were particularly the ones we were talking about from Vesper to R.D. Mice were constructed when Walmart.
No, I mean, who funded them? The state or?
Probably Walmart, when Walmart went in.
Okay.
Typically, the developers will fund that and
Okay.
stuff now, but that's dated many years back before,
Okay.
I mean, that's decades ago and things.
Thank you.
But it is MoDOT's right-of-way and things of that nature.
Thank you.
May I ask a question? On Woods Chapel, we're supposed to have medium also?
Yes.
So who will maintain that one?
That'll be the city's, because that's the city's road. That's not a 7 Highway or an Interstate 70 or anything.
So if we can't fund the one on 7, but we're going to add one to Woods Chapel, then we won't be able to fund that one either, probably when it needs to be maintained. Is that probably likely?
Could be. I mean, you know, the island that's there is decades old. So, I mean, it just out in the future. But, you know, islands are a necessity too on Woods Chapel to keep the traffic moving and for public safety. And so, but yeah, but the Woods Chapel will be the city's to maintain because that's the city's corridor.
But Woods Chapel, as you know, has bond money that's putting that together.
Right,
So
I
those.
understand that. But I mean, in the future,
Another item that goes with the islands on Woods Chapel Road is they'll have actually a stamped concrete center portion to those, which will help seal that island and help to preserve it for a longer period of time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next project is the 7 Highway Sidewalk Infill Program. And the last project then is the golf course repairs to the retaining walls. And there are, of course, descriptions in your program notebook or in the program document that explains or describes all those projects. Planning Commission's role in the CIP. The Planning Commission's role is really to see that it conforms to and furthers the goals of the city's comprehensive plan. And I've listed those goals out as business development and retention, transportation system maintenance and enhancement, housing development, supply and demand, provisions of public service and utilities, urban design, creating quality places, utilization and preservation of natural resources. And I think that it's pretty evident as you look through these projects or what's being proposed that in fact the CIP does further the goals of the comprehensive plan in numerous ways, too numerous actually to go through each one. But with that, we will open it up for any other questions or comments. We also tonight have Todd Pelham, the Assistant City Administrator here, as well as, again, Chief McCoy and Chief Morton. Scott is also here, Director of Community Development. If you have any questions or comments.
I have a question. How, once a project gets onto this, even though it may be unfunded, do they ever drop off without making it to the funded project?
Yes, they can.
What does it take? Just that group deciding not to include them?
Yeah, prior to, excuse me, prior to the CIP rating committee actually even meeting, department directors meet with city administration, and at that time they describe the projects that they have, and they go over any of the old projects that they feel as though need to be revisited. And if, when they're doing that, they feel that a particular program is no longer valid for one reason or another, they will remove that program then from the CIP.
One of the reasons I'm asking is there a project in here for a theater, for a theatrical group. I just think that's beyond what we, as a city, should consider. We have 3 auditoriums here that belong to the school system, but I can't believe we can't work with the school system to use one of those without building a 4th auditorium for a theatrical group. And it's not funded, but it's in there every year, and I can't believe that it stays in there.
And again, I think that's a message that we set forward to the City Council last year, and we would be happy to send that comment forward again, once again this year. Let them know.
Mr. Chairman, I got
Are there other questions?
Gentlemen, maybe Todd can answer this. We just chatted about it. I just thought maybe everybody else should probably hear what Todd said, because I know a lot of people had some questions on it as well. Is on the ambulance on CJC. It was my understanding that CJC was supposed to handle all the ambulance for us, but we're purchasing the ambulance, I guess, for them to use. But Todd kind of explained things a little better for me. That maybe clear things up for everybody to.
Yeah, this is a change to the CIP this year. Just to let you know, those capital assets, that physical asset, the ambulance, is the city's property. So we felt like in the past CIP proposals, we've shown that in the operating budget because it meets the CIP criteria of $50,000 and over. We decided to put it in the capital, so it's really just more of a staying true to our process. But to Michael's question, to clarification, that asset is the city's assets. We insure it. It does have CJC's logo on it, but that is city property. So we work each year on that contract on laying out the useful life of those CIP or the ambulances each year, and kind of do a 6-year kind of thing. And so they were due for another one this year. But it's a slight change of the CIP, but it is the city's ambulance. By state statute, the city controls that EMS license. We contract for services with CJC to provide ambulance service, but all of the physical equipment that CJC uses to provide that service is the city's. So,
Thanks.
if that helps clarify.
Well, I do have a question, Mr. Chair. Sure. Is that used throughout central Jackson County, or is it just used locally here in Blue Springs, or is it just another piece of equipment to use?
I think it probably would be used in their entire service areas. As you know, as they deploy throughout the city, they restack. If they have a call, they reshuffle the deck to make sure that our response times are appropriate. So I'm sure that ambulance at times goes to Grand Valley at times, or different areas. So it doesn't specifically stay in Blue
But
Springs.
we're buying it.
It is our asset, yes.
Does Green Valley purchase one as well for CJC to use, or?
Within their property tax levy obviously supports CJC, so those funds do go into, the capital program that we all benefit from. Those ambulances typically have been our asset, though, so I can't say that they're fully participating in the cost of that ambulance, but I do know that they are contributing through their property taxes for the service. So I don't.
But we buy the ambulance, though.
That's correct, and that's a discussion that the council often brings up, and I think that is a long-term strategic issue of how we partner in the future about that. So it gets a little confusing on the EMS side specifically. The fire's pretty clean, but in this, for the EMS piece of it, it's I think probably Blue Springs is contributing their fair share. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I would say so.
So.
Yeah.
But I think the citizens in Green Valley would argue that, they shop a lot here and they're giving us their sales tax too that helps fund some of that. So I've heard both sides of it, but it's a good discussion.
Thanks.
Mr. Phillips.
Sorry, I'm a little hoarse today. A couple of questions, just because I'm curious about them. On the funded projects, on the new dump truck, snowplow dump truck, it says that the unit being displaced is sent to auction. What happens to the funds that we get for that truck? Does that go to offset the cost of the new one, or does that just go into the general fund?
As with all the vehicles that the city disposes of, that money is just recouped and then put in the general fund, so that even if it's a retired sewer truck, which is an enterprise account, those still go back to general fund.
Okay. And again, just because I'm curious, on the unfunded side, on the 7 highway sidewalk project, are we talking about both sides of 7 highway, or are we just sidewalks on one side?
I think it's both sides of 7 Highway.
Then there's one project, it's SAN 14, which is in the unfunded category, but it says in here that staff recommends this project be funded and placed in the 2010 CIP. Can we talk about that? Why is it unfunded if staff's recommending that that be funded?
Let me find that particular project.
Ken, which one is that?
SAN 14,
What page is it on?
they don't have page numbers,
You have to go
but they
by the-
are alphabetical.
Yeah.
It's toward the very end.
I believe that's AA lift station.
That is, the lift station abandonment is what it says.
Correct. And we had asked for that with the shortfall of funds in the sewer fund. We had requested that it be considered, and finance is still looking to see if we have the funds that we might be able to do that. By putting it off another year, all that we will incur is the electricity and utilities to operate that station.
The lift
And-
station.
Yes, until such time that we can abandon it. We were fortunate that we partnered with the school district when they built the transportation facility to run the northern leg or the downstream side of it up to the railroad tracks, and got that in place before they got their project complete. So all we need is the last leg that goes from the railroad tracks to AA highway. So
So hopefully we can find some money and actually get it into on
Yes,
the
sir.
other side.
Yes, sir.
And the last thing, this is just a comment, and it's a comment that I've made, I know for at least 2 years, and I think for 3 years, and I'm just going to repeat it again because it bears repeating every single year. We've got 2 projects here that are extremely important. That's PS1 and PS2, which are the radio communication systems and the communication center for the police department. And we keep leaving these things in the unfunded projects. And we're fast running out of time when the federal government is going to require us to have these things fixed. And if we had had them in the funded side, even if we'd only been setting a small portion of that money aside each year, we'd at least have a down payment on these things. We've got to get these things into the funded, I don't know what we got to do, but we've got to get these things into the funded projects, even if it's just a deposit, so that we can start saving for it.
It seems to me like I've heard this line of reasoning for the last couple of years.
I know I've said it at least 2 years, and I
Yeah.
think 3. And we've got to start saving for it, one way or another.
It's a
We're
major-
going to have to come up with
it's a major
$9 million
expense. Yeah.
all at one time.
The assistant, Todd Pella may want to address this. I can tell you that they're evaluating alternatives, and I don't know if you want to address that, Todd.
I will try. As you know, the staff has briefed the council in a special work session a couple months ago, looking at 2 different options to get compliant with the FCC requirement by 2013. One of the price tags is $7.2 million. The other solution is about $700,000, almost $800,000. And again, the 2 different strategies are a digital full interoperable system that's $7.2 million, and then the $800,000 is more an analog solution that gets you digitally or gets you compliant with the FCC mandate for 2013. So there's 2 radically different price tags on those. Just to let you know, in the past week we've met individually with council members regarding a strategy to move forward, and I think Mayor Ross in probably the next 2 to 3 months will have some direction to staff on how to move forward with that. But as you can kind of see, again, to bring it back up to the global level, we have about $3 million in our CIP each year. So the only real big ticket item that we have is street rehab. That's about $2.5 million. So unless we dip into that project, the funds are just not right there to fund this at this point for the $7.2 million issue, unless the council directs us to change those priorities, and they have not instructed staff to do that at this point. I know it's high on their priority list, and I do think that obviously we're going to do something. And I think the wheels are grinding a little bit slowly, but I think we're quickly there, and I think Mayor Ross it's a very high priority with him and the rest of the council and the Police Advisory Commission. We're ready to go. We've done our due diligence. We know what we need to do. But it's a very tough policy decision, to be perfectly frank. It's 2 big ticket items that a lot of community, obviously we're not the only community struggling with this. There's 2 schools of thought that the FCC won't stick to their deadline, and they'll push it just like they did with the TV set conversion at your home. They talked about that for several years and pushed those dates back. So there's a school of thought that they might not stick to their guns on this, and we might have more time. That's not a strategy that staff wants to bet on. So we're prepared to move forward. We just need to either reprioritize within our existing budget and make some tough cuts in other areas, or develop some other strategies to look at other revenue. But I think if we were to go with the second solution, which is not ideal, but it will get us compliant, I think we'd be able to reallocate within the operating budget to figure that out with the $800,000 solution. If the council decides to go forward with the $7.2 million, I think it's going to be more of a policy discussion as a community that we're going to need to have. So things are moving forward on that. It's not just floundering. Staff has told the council we need about 12 to 18 months to implement the digital solution, and about 9 months to do what we call the analog solution. So we still have time, but I think first of the year we're going to have some direction on what the strategy is to move forward. So,
Well, like I said, I'd just like to see us at least putting some money aside to start paying for this, you know, even if it's only a couple of $100,000 a year or something, so that we're not just having to eat this whole load at one time.
And that's, the meetings we've had with the council are showing them the current resources in our undesignated unreserved fund balance, that we do have some funds there to maybe make a dent in it. That's kind of our savings account. We have been saving that money. As you know, we've been in a really flat and budget situation the last 3 years. All of our year-end savings have went to this account, so we're trying to, we've tightened our belt the last 2 years, and I think we're prepared to show the council that we can try and get to the strategy, but it's very tough. It's just a huge number that, you know, all communities our side, we're all chasing the same grant funds. They're just not out there. And there's some thought that the federal government will come in at some point and, you know, what are the smaller counties supposed to do? Smaller cities, you know, all over Missouri, that this price point is just, it's overwhelming for smaller communities, and we're a bigger community, so, and we're struggling with it. So it's a tough problem statewide and nationally, so.
Mr. Chair, is that something that, and I'm sorry, I don't have the information, that a bond issue could be used for? Is that feasible?
Yeah, that would definitely be, you know, there's been different, you know, strategies that the council's talked about in work sessions. You know, it could be a ballot initiative to fund that. There's been some talk of a sales tax or a dedicated public safety sales tax. Again, reallocation of existing resources. You know, we've presented all those options to the council. So really, we just need to take a look at all the priorities and get some direction on that.
So the tax that's being discussed now, that would, this would be included in that?
Well, those
safety.
discussions have not happened at the council level, at
Okay.
least the staff. But as you know, one of our we were made aware this past week that some legislation passed this past legislative session that allowed the city to place on the ballot for voter approval, if the council so chooses, to place up to a 1/2 cent dedicated public safety sales tax on the ballot at their so choosing. But
That's what I was wondering, if
the
that particular
the state
one
had
would
to
be
give
here.
us that ability to do that, and so that did pass in the past session. So, but the council hasn't discussed that as a group yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I had a question. On the $800,000 that you're talking about, is that money that you have set aside? I mean, I looked at so many figures, I'm just going to
Yeah,
ask.
I don't want
The reason I'm
to.
asking.
Christine doesn't like when I talk about money, so I won't break out a spreadsheet
Well,
on you right now. But there are dollars, but again, it's in reserve accounts that the council would have to decide if that's. Again, this is a one-time use. You typically don't want to spend your reserves on ongoing operations, but this is a capital need, so it would be a good fit.
The reason
So,
I asked is that if we could borrow the money to get the equipment, $800,000 is a nice payment. If we could allocate the money.
Yeah, and we've talked about a lease purchase on the $7.2 million, maybe over 12 years.
Right.
That number would be around $700,000 to $800,000 a year, but that would have to be a payment we'd have to carve out at some point. So I'll just let you know that the council's very, very committed to the street rehab program. It's very popular. It's our #1 priority in all of our citizen surveys. I think we've done a great job, and public works staff, I think, should be commended. We've over-delivered on that. I think we're at about 58 miles of a 75-mile commitment over 5 years. So we're ahead of schedule, but we have 2 more years to and as you know, as you all live in the community, that when you get your overlay, you're pretty happy in front of your house. So that's a big positive, and I think we're making progress on a big problem there. But the council remains committed to that, and that's our biggest pot of money right now. So.
You should not ever send us to the Citizens Police Academy then. Because I really think that the officers would really like to have these.
You're preaching to the choir. You know, we want to give our police force the tools they need. There's no doubt about that. And, we'll do that. So.
Are there other questions, comments?
Well, I would just like to comment, I mean, in reference to being a part of the committee, and Lynn can also address this as well, as We appreciate your comments very much. And this was a lot of discussion during that meeting about the priorities and about the radio communication. It was amazing to me as I looked through the various CIP projects was the amount of projects just to keep up with the existing city assets and maintaining existing city buildings, and quite a few of those are unfunded as well. And just, thinking down the road, that we need to look at maintaining that infrastructure as well to make sure we don't run into a lot of money if we don't properly keep them maintained and funded throughout the years. And like Todd had pointed out, when you have 2.5 million go to street rehab, you're only using about 500,000, I think, on these other type of projects. And I thought it was very good that we were able to get in the mobile data terminals for
I'm very glad that we've got that part, and I certainly don't want to downgrade the street repairs, because those are definitely needed too. But if we get to a point where the police can't talk to each other and can't talk to CJC and everyone else that they need to talk to, we're going to be in a world of hurt.
Right. And I will comment too, having been on the committee, that there are a lot of projects and we stretch the money out. And I know that not everybody's going to be satisfied with the way that everything was allocated. And there's a lot of good projects that we still need to allocate. We just don't have the funds. And I think the public needs to know that.
Once again, we will pass that comment on to the city council.
You're an easy group. I like you guys. That's what we want to hear. Thank you, though.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate your comments and appreciate you taking a look at the CIP. Thank you.
Thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
Okay, the next agenda item is election of officers. And you can see on the agenda the list of officers that we need to fill and the current person in those jobs. So with that, I will open nominations for the chairman position.
I'd like to nominate Susan Culpepper for chairman. Keith's done a tremendous job the past 2 years, but
All right. Any other nominations? If not, I will entertain a motion to close nominations and to elect Susan Culpepper unanimously.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would you like to take over?
You're doing a great job.
Well, let's see, we have a vice chairman position that's open. Open nominations for that.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Michael Parker.
Michael Parker. Any other nominations? Entertain a motion to close nominations to elect Michael Parker unanimously.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Board of Adjustment Representative is currently Michael Parker.
Mr. Chairman, I know I probably threw a hitch in the get-along, but I know Mike really enjoys doing that, and I know he wanted and would like to serve another term in that position.
unless James May, I know, would love to do
I'm perfectly satisfied being an alternate.
All right, we have Michael Parker is nominated as Board of Adjustment Representative. If there are no other nominations, I'll entertain a motion to close nominations to elect Michael Parker unanimously. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, the alternate rep.
I would like to nominate James. Sorry,
May.
James
You're all
May.
having too much fun.
No other nominations. I'll entertain a motion to close nominations to elect James May unanimously as alternate rep.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Historic Preservation Representative, Ken Billups, and I've seen your name very active in that
Absolutely is.
position.
I have no objection.
I make a
nominate
motion.
Ken.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Ken Billups.
Go ahead and let her. She already has
Ken
it there.
Billups. Entertain a motion to close nominations and to elect Ken Billups unanimously. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Technical Review Committee rep, Alan Franklin is not here any longer.
I'd like to nominate Mark Trozen.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank
Entertain
you.
a motion to close nominations for that position and to elect Mark Trojan unanimously.
So
So
moved.
moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Development Advisory Commission representative, I think that, maybe that goes with chairman
They
position.
go along with that, that's
Yeah.
fine.
I make a motion
Okay.
then for Susan Culpepper
Um,
as Development Advisory.
Okay, entertain a motion to close nominations for that and to elect Susan unanimously.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Solid Waste Management Commission representative George Abbott.
Somebody really wants to
There's
make it
nobody
happen.
else. It's better than.
Well, I think there's no one as qualified as George. certainly. So,
I'll do it again.
all right, George Abbott. We'll just say Downtown Review Board rep has been Lynn Banks.
I'll
Willing to
nominate
continue
Lynn.
with that?
That's fine.
All right, let's elect you.
We're getting real casual.
Okay, let's go back to solid
You want
waste.
to leave?
Yes, Michael Parker, or you motioning that George Abbott?
Absolutely.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so
All right, we'll do it just legally.
All in
okay,
favor?
and now we're at the downtown.
Okay, Downtown Review Board rep, Lynn Banks has been nominated. Entertain a motion to close nominations, elect Lynn unanimously. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now the Downtown Review Board alternate rep is Joe Haney.
I think Travis ought to be getting his feet wet. Wouldn't you like to do
Yeah.
that?
Sure.
Super.
And it's alternate.
He'll ease you in.
Lynn, how many times have you met?
May will fill you in with that.
As soon as you take that position,
You
you
know-
gotta go to a meeting. Yeah. The alternates never win.
All right,
yeah, I
entertain a
think
motion to close
Joe would do.
nominations and to elect Travis unanimously.
So moved.
Seven?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, I believe that's all the positions that we need to fill.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other business that we need to take up this evening? We've already had a motion to adjourn.
I think it was seconded too.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, but don't run off because we do have a presentation by Bob McDonald, so.
So moved.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So move, we're adjourned.
Darn, this is only the second time too, isn't it? Watch this.
Before we start.